And with that, we have finished our study of today's material. But just before we conclude for today and look at some of the questions of our noble brothers and sisters who are with us online, we'd like to invite ourselves to think carefully about an issue that so many people are heedless about regarding the information in this chapter. I really want all of you to think carefully about this issue that I'm going to mention now. Since it's related to a crime that has quite simply 4 or 5 hadith that we have studied today, that should be sufficient to scare you from this crime. And anything that might be considered a kind of this crime, you should avoid it. The people have become very lackadaisical and lenient with regards to the making of images in general. And I would like to invite you to think that putting pen to paper, paintbrush on a paper, colored pencil down, markers, what have you, on the computer using Microsoft Paint or using any number of graphics programs to produce images. These images made by hand, one by one, each and every one of them is a crime, and each and every one of them is subject to what we would say goes into this hadith. Remember the hadith, look on the board. A spirit shall be made for each image he made, through which he shall be punished additionally in the fire. So while an artist with a brush, colored pencil, marker, or instrument used by the hand, like those mentioned, he might make a picture or a few pictures or even a dozen pictures in a day or in a long period of time, whereas the person who uses a camera will make dozens of pictures very easily, hundreds of pictures in an hour, easily, with a camera. And I would like you to think and reflect on this, that you have heard that some scholars consider the images made by a camera to be permissible, and that some scholars consider the images made by the camera to be from the generality of images. If you know as a Muslim that the scholars differ about this issue, if you know that, then what is your stance? What should your stance be? Is it that you take the easier fatwa, the more popular fatwa, the one more in line with your desires? Or is it that you have wara? When we're talking about an issue that the scholars differ over, and get it right, the way they differ over this issue is that there is a general prohibition that is all-encompassing, the making of images. They differ over one kind of image made with a camera. Is it exempted or not? I'd like you to think about what would the case be if the reality with Allah is that the image made with a camera is truly capturing that which Allah made and it's not creating a new image. If you stayed away from it, what would be upon you Yawm al-Qiyamah? If you were just fearful and you were afraid that it might fall into the generality of the prohibition, and you stayed away from the camera and making images with it of living beings, what will be upon you Yawm al-Qiyamah? What crime will you have to face? Nothing, because you didn't make any pictures. And pictures turned out to be with a camera permissible. And Allah Ta'ala knows the reality. Think on the other hand, in an issue that the scholars differ over, what if the truth is with those like Sheikh al-Albani and Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahimahum Allah, and as you see in front of you, or what you have heard this evening from Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, that photography with a camera is included in the general prohibition. If these scholars are right, and you took pictures, then what is the result on the Day of Judgment? There is a serious implication of having the wrong position on the Day of Judgment. I want you to understand that, and let us return back to our usul from the very foundational matters of Islam, is how a Muslim is to interact with issues of differing, issues of scholarly differing. We have a hadith from Nu'man ibn Bashir, radiyallahu anhu. One of the 4 hadith that Abu Dawood, the Imam of the Sunan, said there are 4 hadith which will be sufficient for a person's deen. And he mentioned from them, إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنٌ وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنٌ وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. The halal is clear. The halal is clear, obvious. The haram is clear and obvious. And there are affairs in the middle, in the gray area, in the middle, that many people do not know the correct ruling about. There are issues of differing, where the issue is not clear. Wallahi, I invite you to think, those of you who think that cameras and making pictures with cameras is permissible, are you very clear that Allah has exempted this from His general prohibition? Are you upon bayyina from Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Is the exemption of the camera from the general prohibition of picture making as clear to you as the prohibition itself? Are you confident that this is an exemption, not by a Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen or a Shaykh Fulan, rahimahullah wa rahimahum, but from Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Are you confident or are you unsure? If you are unsure, then you have a manhaj in dealing with this issue. If you are confident, then to you that fatwa, and you will face what you are upon, and you are responsible for your decision. If you say that you are unsure, and you are honest with yourself, and you say, I've read the arguments of those who say cameras are not permissible, yet there are still some holes that I find, or some unsure, some parts of the argument that I am unsure about and not convinced with, then you are convinced with the original rule that picture making is impermissible and one of the sources of the most grievous punishments on the Day of Judgment. The halal is clear, the haram is clear, and between the halal and the haram there are gray areas. Matters that are confusing and not many people know the correct position in them. فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Whoever stays safe from those gray matters, those affairs of differing that the people don't seem to know about clearly, then he has protected himself, his honor, and his religion. وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ. And those people who fall into the shubuhat, they fall into the gray areas between the halal and the haram where the people are confused. وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. They will fall into the haram. كَالرَّاعِي يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى يُوشَكُ أَنْ يَرْتَعَ فِيهَا. And just like the shepherd that allows his sheep to graze around a boundary that he is not allowed to cross, so long as he keeps letting his sheep go right up to the boundary, the gate, right on the border, sooner or later some of those sheep are going to jump over. وَإِنَّ لِكُلِّ مَلِكٍ حِمَى أَلَا وَإِنَّ حِمَى اللَّهِ مَحَارِمُهُ. And for every king, he has boundaries, he has limits, he has posts in the land that you are not allowed to cross. And those boundaries for Allah are His prohibitions, the halal and the haram. Naam. And that's the hadith, or part of the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir radiyallahu anhu, that you all should know, as it's part of the Arba'in, the 40 hadith of An-Nawawi. And it gives us, as mentioned, a very strong principle. When the people differ over something, then if it's about something being haram or halal, then stay away from it. Keep yourself safe. Don't put yourself in jeopardy on the Day of Judgment. Go back to your foundation of safety and security and being far away from something that could be disobedience to Allah Ta'ala. Especially when, if you compare these two things, clearly those who take a pen, a pencil, a paintbrush, a marker, and they make an image, a hand-drawn image of a living thing, they will face the most grievous and horrible punishment in the hereafter. And according to a number of great senior scholars, the same applies to the person who pushes the shutter, the button on the camera that captures the image onto the negative that produces the image. Or now it's digital photography, so there's no negative. Whatever the process may be, someone who uses modern technology to make a picture. According to some of the greatest and most senior scholars of our time, this is from the generality of picture making, and it is also impermissible. So while the hand-drawing artist makes a few pictures, the photographer takes hundreds of pictures. Each one of those pictures will be brought to life on the Day of Judgment with a separate soul and will be a source of extra agony and punishment on that day. We ask Allah Ta'ala for safety. And as I've mentioned this issue, I would also like you to think more deeply on this issue. Remember the camera. That a person uses a camera to make dozens or hundreds of pictures in a short amount of time, and that a spirit shall be made for each image he made through it, which he shall be punished additionally in the hellfire, as the hadith that we have studied today has proven. I'd like you to think about something else to compare, and that is the very definition of videography. The taking or the making of images through a video camera. Some people are quick to assume that this is also halal, that this is also permissible. Yet, I would invite you now to type in the chat window. Anyone who knows, anyone who wants to go quickly on Wikipedia or any source. What is the definition of videography? What is the technical definition of making a video? What is a video? And what is videography? For those of you who know, could you type it in the window? Anyone? Digital imaging. I want a real, what is it though? I want to know what is it. It's the use of a machine to do, because I want like a proper definition, like a dictionary definition. That really tells us what it is. If you don't know, I'll let you know. The art or process of making films with a video camera. Very good. That's in brevity. That's in brief. Okay, we've got Safiya saying, videography refers to the process of capturing moving images on electronic media, videotape, direct disc recording, or solid state storage through a tapeless camcorder, even streaming media. Omar says moving pictures. Omar, you have hit the nail on the head. Look at the picture on the screen. That's called film for a video, the film of a video. No matter what you use, whether you're using this old-fashioned projector film or modern digital videography, you are capturing still frame after still frame. That's why you have something in the video called frame forward and frame backward. The picture is not moving. The pictures are still images, and they are played in rapid succession, 30 per minute on average, maybe 60 per minute. I'm sorry, for second, not minute. 30 pictures per second or 60 pictures per second are flashed in front of the human eye in rapid succession, one after the other. that creates the illusion of movement. It is very similar to the old-fashioned way of drawing a picture in the corner of a drawing book, and you flip the pages and it looks like there is a moving image. Videography, to this day, with all of the advances that we have and all of the new equipment, it is still photography that moves the images one by one. Are you clear on that? That the video contains frames, no matter whether you say it's a digital video or it is an old-fashioned video camera on film and all of that. Every video has frames. Every one of those frames is an image, is a still image, captured, that did not exist until the picture maker took it. That image did not exist on that digital film, on that plastic film or traditional film, until the picture maker, until the cameraman took that image. That image has been created. That image has been produced, and it did not exist before he made it. Every one of those. So imagine, let's say a generous 30 or let's say 60 pictures per second. When you make a video of 1 minute, 60 seconds times 60, you have 3,600 images. 3,600 images in 1 minute of videography. If you don't believe me, you are free to investigate and to check it. You have made 3,000 still images, 3,600 still images, and they are played one after the other in a way that convinces the human eye that those things are moving. Or perhaps 30 images per second, and I'm not going to guarantee the accuracy of the number of images per second, but it is a number like that. So then, if you've understood this, and you've understood that we don't have any guarantee from our scholars that this is exempted from the generality of picture making. And in actuality, when you study the issue of what videography is, that it is the display of still images one after the other in rapid succession, tricking the human eye into believing that something is moving, then you will realize that you have made, with a video image, a series of thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, perhaps millions of images. And we go back to our hadith. If this is not exempted, this is how dangerous it is. Think about how dangerous this is if you are wrong, videographers. Think about the danger and the crimes that are being committed if you are wrong. A spirit will be blown in each of those images on Yawm al-Qiyamah, through which he'll be punished additionally in the hellfire. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us safety, to grant us distance from the mushtabihat, to grant us distance, safety and security from the affairs that the people differ over. And we ask Him to guide us to going back to the original rule of image making if we are not clear on this exception. If it is not absolutely certain to us that this kind of image making is permissible, we ask Him for safety and that He guides us away from what could be a horrible end for us and destruction and torment in the hereafter. This is the benefit of studying our deen. It's not to say, oh no, one more haram thing. It is that you will learn about what Allah Ta'ala loves and what He puts people in Jannah because of these actions, and what He hates and what He has prohibited, and what lands people in harm in this life and in the hereafter. If this has awoken you, then we thank Allah Ta'ala. And if it has not, then I ask you to think deeply and carefully about this issue, especially in light of the clarity and the authenticity of the texts that are explicit in the severity of the punishment in the hereafter for those who make images. I would like you to sincerely compare that to the level of clarity you are upon for this idea being exempted. and then what the result would be if you are wrong. May Allah Ta'ala bless us with sincerity, and may He grant us an increase in knowledge and righteous actions, and may He give us ease in leaving things that He hates and that would lead to our harm. May He give us ease in that, and may He replace those things with what is more wholesome and better and beneficial from us, and may He Ta'ala give us distance from the shubuhat and the mushtabihat. May He give us distance from whisperings and doubts of the mubtadi'ah, of the people of bid'ah, and the affairs that are not clearly halal or haram. May Allah Ta'ala give us distance from them and safety and security in this life and in the next life. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Some people put a lot of questions up here already, so I'm going to freeze the chat window now to look at all of the questions that were already put up in the window. People were asking about these issues before they were brought up. Question, just to clarify, is it okay to draw, take pictures of flowers, natural scenery, mountains, leaves, etc.? Does this fall under the prohibition of making pictures? Also, the use of smileys in text messages, emails, is this allowed? Barakallahu feek. Wafika, wafiki, barakallah. Tayyib, thank you so much for your question, and may Allah Ta'ala bless you and your family and those who love you for Allah's sake. This question is definitely something that we have to know, that the images of things which are not living, they are perfectly permissible for us to draw. Islam does not prohibit us from art. Rather, Islam refines our artistic practices to that which Allah Ta'ala loves. So, as you can see, you might look at the board in front of you today and the slide that was before this one and say, this is kind of strange. I don't recall the use of graphics and pictures in the Tawhied class before. I did this specifically for this class, firstly to illustrate what videography is, so you can see that a film is a series of still images and that you could be reminded by something that might stick in your mind. But secondly, also to reinforce the idea that Muslims are not against art, and we are not against using art for education or using art for benefit, so long as that art is within the permissible affairs that Allah Ta'ala has allowed us to do, like the art that you see in front of you, or the drawing of flowers and natural scenery and so on. And if you wanted to buy a picture, for example, a picture of the wilderness, and you wanted to hang it on your wall, there's no problem with that. If there was a picture of a deer or an eagle or something in the scene where the majority of the scene is mountains and trees, you could simply remove the head of that image, and perhaps it would not be very noticeable, and that image would be halal for you, so long as you remove the heads of those images. Now, as for the use of smileys, then I'm afraid that smileys, I won't say it with certainty, but I'm afraid that smileys are very close to, if not included in, the issue of image making, as they are generally the drawings of what resemble human faces. And that is the part of the picture that you would remove, the head, if there was an image. So it is the essential part of the image. So let us not say, well, it's too small and it's tiny. Let us remind ourselves with the seriousness of this matter, that the Messenger ﷺ spoke about image making in so many hadith, that near 20 in number, as he has not spoken about other prohibited matters. And you've seen the wordings of those texts today. So, at least, without saying it's haram, without being absolutely certain about it, can we stay away from it, fearing that that could be haram, at the least? Or if a person said, that's just a face, how could that be permissible? I would have to agree. And so, without giving a fatwa on that issue, I will say I admonish you and I advise you and remind you to stay away from issues that could be an image. And that's the least of this situation. A question here is, to deface a picture, that is sufficient? To deface a picture, is it sufficient to deface the eyes, or should we deface the whole face? For example, pictures in children's book. Barakallahu fiqh. If you've heard the hadith from me, or the explanation, then it goes back to the hadith, al-suratu ar-ra's. The image is the head. It's not the eyes, and it's not the face alone. Rather, it is the head. So if it is a statue, the head is removed. If it is a picture, the head is removed. Why do I say that? Because some people might think that if someone turns their back, or a picture of something with its back faced is not a with its back facing you is not a picture. But the image is that which has a head, and the removal of that image is by removing the head. Naam, and Allah Ta'ala knows best. And those people who say it's sufficient to remove the image by removing the eyes, or drawing a line through the neck, as some people say, or just blocking part of the face out or something, then we would remind them that it is the head that is to be removed, and Allah Ta'ala knows best. Is it permissible to use the various smiley faces? Okay, we discussed that. Does the prohibition also apply to partial images of a human, such as a hand, an eye? Also, are silhouettes of human and animals allowed? Allah Ta'ala knows best. Is it, firstly, to go back to the issue of the hand and the eye, not the eye, I won't speak about that, but the hand, since the Messenger ﷺ instructed us to remove the head, that means the rest of the body may remain. Not that we would intend to have it as art, like a headless statue or something, but you have completed the task of removing the image by removing the head of the image. And so that means the hand and the arm remain. Is it permissible for a woman to get an ultrasound of the baby? Ultrasound, that's the image where they take the image of the shape of the baby's body. Allah Ta'ala knows best. There's a great benefit in that related to the life and the health of the baby. That is a fatwa issue that should be given to the scholars. Naam. What do you advise one to do? And I say that in light of some knowledge that I have, that they take these images not just for the sake of giving images to the mother and showing her that there's a baby in her womb, but they measure the bone sizes and the skull size, and they measure things to determine if certain illnesses are present and that can be treated through vitamins and through different measures before the baby is born. And I believe that those things are actually established. So given that the case, that issue needs to be compiled and given to the scholars to see if that is exempted, if they believe that is exempted, if it's enough of a benefit that it should be exempted from the prohibition of images. What do you advise one to do if his parents have pictures of him, childhood pictures, etc., which they refuse to get rid of, and which they forbid you to destroy? Should we destroy them anyways, although the outcome and their reactions might be very harsh, or should we leave their sin to them? Barakallahu feek. The Prophet ﷺ said, and I want you to listen to the hadith and also listen to its meaning, as it's very important, and many people misunderstand the hadith and they don't understand it in its place. مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. Whoever of you sees an evil thing, let him change it with his hand. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ. Whoever is not able to do that, then let him change it with his tongue, and whoever is not able to do that, then let him change it within his heart. The scholars of Islam have said that the ability that is being mentioned here is sultan, it is authority, meaning the Muslim authority may destroy haram property of the people under its rule without getting their permission. They may forbid an evil by their hands, and similarly a father in a household or a man in his place of authority, he is required to change the evil things that he is in authority over with his hand. He changes them with his hand, and that is his responsibility. Then when he's unable to do that because he does not have authority, then he changes it with his tongue. Meaning, if he comes into a situation where he is not in authority, like what your question is asking about, pictures owned by your parents, not pictures owned by you, pictures owned by your parents that they keep in their possession. This is other people's property that you are not responsible for and you have no authority over. Understand? So in this case, you don't have the authority to destroy those pictures. You don't have authority. And perhaps destroying those pictures without authority could land you into a lot of problems. And so we are not to forbid the evil by changing it with our hands when we do not have authority. Either general authority, that is the Muslim authority under the Muslim rulership, or a deputy of the Muslim rulership, or specific rulership or specific authority over our family or our business or our interactions with our what we have authority over. No. So I think that should be clear to you then, that you go to the level of the advice. You go to the level of changing it by tongue, and you advise them and you admonish them. It's a very difficult issue, and I do remind you to keep in mind the manners of dealing with issues that the scholars differ over. Do not make a fitna for people by claiming decisively that images are haram and that whoever has these images will be in the hellfire. I have not done that today. I have simply asked you to think carefully about what if the fatwa issuing the permissibility of such pictures is wrong. And I do believe personally within myself it is wrong. However, we must acknowledge that there are scholars who are qualified that have said otherwise. It's a modern issue that the true scholars of Islam differ over. So when we order and forbid, we keep that in mind. You recommend nicely, you suggest through knowledge and through teaching that this could be dangerous, and what if we're wrong? Perhaps use the approach that I have used this evening to invite them to think about this matter and what if it is incorrect. Naam. So in that way you are prohibiting the evil or forbidding the evil with your tongue. Naam. I would like to mention also a real quick benefit here that should have been mentioned previously, and that is that you might say, well, how come every Muslim takes pictures? And how come no one's ever heard of this before? Some of you might be saying this. So the first time I've ever heard that a picture with a camera is forbidden. This is the first time I've ever heard of this. This must be a strange opinion. This must be a rare and odd opinion. And it must be that this student is just one of those students who likes to prohibit the people from things and mention something that is rare or something like that. I'd like you to really think about what I've mentioned this evening, in light of the fact that, as I mentioned to you, Sheikh Ibn Baz and Sheikh Al-Albani, both of these great scholars, add to their likes the likes of Sheikh Muqbil, the likes of Sheikh Rabi' ibn Hadi al-Madkhali, the likes of Sheikh Saleh al-Fawzan, a number of great scholars recognized for their scholarship and their ability to give fatwa and their ability to make ijtihad. They have said that cameras, picture making, photography and videography, all of it is included in the generality of the prohibition of picture making. I'm not bringing to you an odd issue, a strange one that one scholar has spoke of. I'm not bringing something strange to you. However, it may seem strange because the media, newspapers, television stations, all of them, to exist and to compete in their market, they must rely on the fatwa that issue the permissibility of picture making. Every person who makes a video and claims that he's calling to Allah through his videos or through his pictures, then he has to rely on those images, on those fatwa that say image making with a camera is exempted and that it is not truly image making, and therefore it is not blameworthy. Since that's the case, the media, and this is one example of how the mass media, even in the lands of the Muslims, affects the knowledge of the people. The media will not be fair and tell you the list of names that I have mentioned to you this evening and say this is an issue of differing and you need to be careful. Rather, the media would like to present to you or portray the issue as if the scholars tend to be in general agreement, or that the scholars, all of them, save one rare person here and there, have all agreed that image making with a camera or with a video camera is all permissible and it's all allowed. And this is quite an assumption to make. And it's what they would like you to believe. However, you need to investigate this and what the scholars of Islam have said. And we don't take our positions on Islamic rulings from journalists and from those people who are in charge of the decisions around a newspaper or a television station. And sadly, that's who has chosen this position and spread it through that media. I'd like you to think about that and how that opinion has spread so far and wide through the media, the television, the satellite channels, the internet videos, and so on, by people who are not scholars. They are just program coordinators and television producers. They will champion the fatwa that some scholars have given that says photography and videography are exempted from the prohibition. I invite you to think about that as well in light of everything else that has proceeded. And we have gone way over our time. And I ask Allah Ta'ala to bless all of you. And